Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is. I do hope that you're having a good time. This is the third in a series of flips for a class at Hokkaido University of Education, Asayakawa, on critical thinking. This is the second one that I'm assigning as homework. We are continuing to work through general concepts. So, some of the key terms for this time are premise, conclusion, identify, indicator, and order. So, last time we talked about evaluating and making arguments. We talked about conclusions, which are the things you're trying to prove that are statements, and about premises, which are the things that support that. Both of these are statements, and again, this is an important concept. Statements are things that can be true or false. So, for instance, it is true that my tie is blue. It is false that my shirt is green. These are different things that we would both call statements, even though one is true and one is false. All right. Again, I mentioned I would say this many times, and I'm going to repeat it probably for the next 3 or 4 weeks. And that is the statement that if something is logical, this means that each part is clear, the parts are connected, the order of the parts leads to the conclusion, and the role of each premise supports the conclusion. So, there's several ways to talk about arguments. We can talk about an argument being good or an argument being bad. What we mean by this is that an argument is good if it follows these sorts of rules. An argument is bad if it doesn't follow these rules, or if it convinces you by using something that is outside of these rules. We can talk about arguments as being strong or weak. Strong meaning it is convincing, weak meaning it is not convincing, reliable or unreliable. And in the case of deductive arguments, which we'll look at later, valid, invalid, and sound, terms that I'll explain then. So a good argument, it takes you from premises you accept to a conclusion you do not yet believe. The recipe for a good argument is premises people believe and justifications for each step that people can accept. So we're going to look at both of these things in this class. So, first part of having a good argument, looking at it from the perspective of making an argument, having a clear premise and conclusions. From the perspective of critiquing arguments, we're going to want to be able to identify the premise and the conclusion. So an important rule when evaluating arguments, be nice. What I mean by this is make other people's arguments into logical arguments. If someone makes a mistake in their English, fix the mistake and work from there. If something is unclear, make it clearer and make the argument work from there. If the premises are out of order, the conclusion is in the middle or somewhere hard to find, move it around so it makes sense. Also, if there's a small change that would just make the argument that much clearer and better, please make this change. The corollary, meaning when we switch this to making arguments, is you should do your best to make logical arguments in the first place. So order your premises based on the structure, make your conclusion easy to find, and use clear terms. Use the best justifications you possibly can. So let's see what the first thing is that we want to do when evaluating an argument. Step 1, identify the premises and the conclusion. First, we want to get that conclusion down. So ask yourself, what are they trying to convince us of? Another nice tip that helps a lot of people who are not native speakers, look for indicator words. Look for things like therefore, ergo, thus, so, then. When we find these words, they help us to know what it is that someone is trying to say and why that's their conclusion. So if we start with this, cats with long hair shed all over the house, so you should not get a long-haired cat. I have heard that they also have lots of fleas. All right, so what's our conclusion? So let's look at this in another light. So after we've identified the conclusion, all right, so our conclusion here is that you should not get a long-haired cat. We have the indicator word so. Let's look at the premises now. After identifying the conclusion, think of how the premises support this conclusion. Look for indicator words for each of the premises. There might be some, there might not. Since, because, also, if, given that are signs that we're talking about a premise. Because cats with long hair shed all over the house, you should not get a long-haired cat. Also, I've heard they have a lot of fleas. So in this case, I've given you indicator words for the premises. In the previous version, I gave you indicator words for the conclusion. Second idea, and this is an important one when making your arguments and is one to think about when looking at arguments, is to use a natural order. So let's work with the same argument. Cats with long hair shed all over the house, so you should not get a long-haired cat. I've heard they also have a lot of fleas. So our conclusion here, you should not get a long-haired cat. Cats with long hair shed, and cats with long hair have a lot of fleas. So if we want to make clear what our conclusion is, we should put the conclusion in one of two places. So either we should put the conclusion at the front or the end. Let's look at some other arguments and see if you can find the premises and the conclusion. I deserve a raise. I'm very good at my job. All right, which one is the conclusion? Answer, I deserve a raise. If you think about it, I'm very good at my job is a reason why I deserve a raise. Argument 2. Jesse is 1 year old. Most 1-year-olds can walk. It follows that Jesse can walk. Here we have an indicator phrase. It follows that Jesse can walk. So our conclusion is Jesse can walk. Argument 3. HUE Asakawa will win the championship because they have the best team. What do you think? So here I'm going to say HUE Asakawa will win the championship. The word because is an indicator word, so the part that follows is a premise. Also, it's the only way the argument really makes sense. So our natural order idea is this. Make your argument easy for your listener to understand. Use one of two formats. Either put the conclusion at the top or put the conclusion at the bottom. These are your two options. This is the best way. This is really helpful because it makes your conclusion easy to find. In Western academic writing, one thing that makes it very simple to follow things is the conclusion for the entire paper is stated at the top of the paper, and each paragraph is an argument where the main claim is at the top of that paragraph. So here are a couple of examples. Premise, premise, conclusion. All whales are mammals. All mammals are warm-blooded, so all whales are warm-blooded. So premise, premise, conclusion. So here we go, premise, premise, conclusion. And again, HUE Asakawa is a great school. It has a wonderful cafeteria. The students are nice. So conclusion, premise, premise. If you do this, it will help your readers. Also, when you look at arguments, when you see that people don't do this, you will realize those people are not very skilled at making arguments. So let's look at an argument that's a little bit jumbled. If today is a Monday, then Dr. K has enough time to grade everything before Thursday's class. Dr. K has enough time to grade everything before Thursday's class. Today is a Monday. So here we have three statements. So one statement is if today is a Monday, then Dr. K has enough time to grade everything before Thursday's class. Another is Dr. K has enough time to grade everything before Thursday's class. And the third one is today is a Monday. What is our conclusion? Well, since I told you it's jumbled, it shouldn't be too hard. Our conclusion is Dr. K has enough time to grade everything before Thursday's class. We have to use the other two as premises to lead to this conclusion. This is a very common argument structure, but it's a little bit jumbled here, so it might be hard to find. So here we go. I've highlighted the conclusion for you. And as I explained, this is going to follow. We have an if, then. We have the left-hand side of the if. Then we have that left-hand side appearing, so we know the right-hand side will be the conclusion. If we want to make this better, there are several fixes. First, we could add an indicator word. So we could make it so Dr. K has enough time to grade everything before Thursday's class. The second thing is we can use our rules about structure. Let's put it either at the top or let's put it at the bottom. This will help us to know that this is supposed to be the conclusion. So thank you again for your time. This is the second of the ones that students will watch as homework. This is the third in the video series. I hope that you're learning. It's going to get harder from here, so please keep trying. Remember, you can speed me up or slow me down. It doesn't bother me. You're watching it. I'm not there. So I hope that you are having a pleasant time. If you have questions, please remember to ask in class.